we got the job cut number from Challenger. We would have got the official jobs numbers today, but we didn't get those because of the government shutdown. But we got these Challenger job cut numbers, and these are announced layoffs. And for the month, it was 153,074. That's a 183% increase from September and 175% higher than a year ago, October. These were the most job layoffs that we've had in an October since 2003. And it was led by layoffs in technology-related companies. And that was probably similar back then because we had, the bursting of the dot-com bubble. We had that recession. But it's technology jobs. So these are probably high-paying jobs that are getting axed. And so the worst since 2003, but it's the worst or the highest number of announced layoffs in any month in the fourth quarter, right, which would be October, November, or December. The highest since 2008, which was, of course, the financial crisis. So, I mean, this is telling you, if we haven't had companies laying people off at this rate since we were in the middle of the financial crisis, not even the middle, like the depths, the fourth quarter of 2008. I mean, that was it. It started in the summer. So companies were in a lot of trouble. The economy was in bad shape. We were deep in the Great Recession, right? The worst recession since the Depression. And now we have the same amount of layoffs as we did then. Companies are that worried. They're cutting back and they're downsizing. And Trump is out there, going around the world, telling everybody how great our economy is.
The U.S. economy is showing some serious cracks beneath the surface. In October, we saw the highest number of announced layoffs since the 2008 financial crisis, 153,000 jobs cut, which is a staggering 183% increase from September. At the same time, consumer sentiment has fallen to its second lowest level since 1978. Yet the administration claims we have the strongest economy ever. The disconnect here is striking. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is showing classic bubble behavior. While prices hover around $100,000, crypto-related stocks have crashed between 40% and 70%. Even more worrying is the leverage building up. People are borrowing against their Bitcoin at 50% collateral. If this unwinds, those coins will be sold at much lower prices, and owners may still owe taxes on gains they never actually received. This is a financial time bomb waiting to explode. Trump-era tariffs are another problem. Importers are suing because they, not foreign countries, are paying these tariffs. These are essentially unconstitutional taxes hitting American businesses and consumers directly, and the legal battles are exposing the truth behind them. But there is an opportunity amid this chaos. Gold is holding strong at $4,000 an ounce, and silver is near $50. Yet gold and silver mining stocks have fallen back to levels we saw when gold was only $3,600. Fear has created a massive disconnect. Historically, when even die-hard investors are pessimistic during a bull market, that's when the smart money steps in. The fundamentals are strong, sentiment is weak, and this could be the perfect time to accumulate precious metals.
This is not the bubble that the media is portraying it to be. The bubble is in crypto. And the air, by the way, is coming out. Bitcoin got back below 100,000 today and this week. This is the first time since June that we've been below 100,000. Now, there was some buying. I think the entire crypto community is kind of circling the wagons here, trying to defend 100,000. And they were able to pop the market back up to around 104,000. But to me, this is a big bear market. I think once we really break maybe 98,000, 97, get some distance between Bitcoin and 100,000, it's just going to sink like a stone. If the crypto stocks are a leading indicator, they are getting slaughtered. Every stock that is any way related to crypto is way down. I mean, at least 40 or 50%, if not 60 or 70%. Even the leader of the pack, Strategy, hit a 52-week low this morning, and it was down 60% from its 52-week high. Now, it recovered. I think it closed down around 52% from that high. But this is the best stock, right? This is the poster boy for crypto companies, treasury company. And it's been cut in half in what's supposedly, the best environment ever for crypto, with the entire Trump administration behind crypto. In fact, Donald Trump, when he was on 60 Minutes this week, and he basically said that the only thing he cares about is that the United States lead the world in crypto. I mean, that's his main concern, right? According to Donald Trump. Yet despite all that, and he actually bragged on this show, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the things that he said on the show, but he actually bragged about how right he was on crypto and the crypto industry being so important and being so vital, and that, we must beat China. We can't let China win in crypto. I mean, China doesn't give a damn about winning in crypto, right? That's not even on their bingo card. They'll let us have that market. What do they care? Who wants to lead the world in decentralized Ponzi schemes and pyramids, right? That's an American thing. The Chinese don't want any part of that. They want to invest their money productively. They want to make things that people actually need. I just got back yesterday from my time at the New Orleans Investment Conference. And, I expected the mood to be even more jubilant than it was, considering how much the price of gold had risen between the conference a year ago and the conference this past week, and in particular, the gold mining stocks, because it's really a conference dominated by mining stocks. Almost all the exhibitors in the exhibit hall are gold and silver mining companies, with a few others, thrown in there, but the vast majority are mining companies, and pretty much all the attendees invest in gold and silver mining companies, in addition to the physical metal. And, given where we were, I expected even more enthusiasm than I saw. Yeah, I mean, I think it was a little bit more upbeat than it was a year ago, when there was a lot more despair and frustration. And, of course, a year ago was a great time to be buying gold and silver stocks. But I heard a lot of people talking about taking profits, selling. There was some worried people about the drop. Gold had almost hit 4,400, and they're talking about that big drop, and maybe it's going lower, which, of course, is what happens in a bull market. You get these violent sell-offs to scare people out. But the bottom line is gold's $4,000 an ounce. In fact, it closed the week almost right at $4,000 an ounce again. Yes, we've traded below. We haven't traded below 3,900. The lowest I've seen gold was in the lower 3,900s, 3,920, 3,930. And it's gotten above 4,000. I think it got to 4,020, 4,030 this week. It's been hanging out at that area. This is very similar to the way gold behaved when it first broke through 3,000. Yes, it wasn't a line in the sand where gold didn't go below 3,000, but it didn't go much below 3,000, and eventually it took off and then went above 4,000. I think we're doing the same thing now. I think we're forming a base right around 4,000, and before you know it, we'll be at 5,000. But meanwhile, a lot of investors aren't going to own gold for that ride because they're getting shaken out now. Trump, the Supreme Court is, I guess, getting close because they had oral arguments. And I said from the beginning that the Trump tariffs are unconstitutional. I mean, it's really a no-brainer. If you know anything about the Constitution, the power to tax is vested with Congress, specifically the House of Representatives, because all revenue bills have to originate there. And tariffs raise revenue. I mean, and the Constitution refers to tariffs as taxes. That's what they are. And Trump just can't go around slapping taxes on people because, Remember, the whole country, taxation was a big part of the American Revolution, right? We didn't want King George taxing us. Well, we don't want the president taxing us either, right? We wanted the representatives of the people. We wanted our own congressmen from our own districts to tax us. And then if we didn't like the taxes, we could vote them out. Every 2 years, all of the House of Representatives are up for re-election. That's why the founding fathers said that's where taxes have to start. If you look at what's been going on in the economy, right, the negatives are really coming to the surface, despite the fact, and again, Donald Trump on this 60 Minutes interview talked about how the U.S. economy is the strongest it's ever been, and it was the weakest it's ever been a year ago when Biden was president, and it went from the worst economy to the best economy, and it's the hottest economy in the world. And everybody agrees that it's the hottest economy in the world. They said the U.S. economy was dead last year, and now it's alive and thriving because Trump is president. Well, if you look at the actual economic data, it belies all of that bragging that's being done by Trump. We got the University of Michigan consumer sentiment numbers that just came out, and not only were they much lower than expected at 50.3, a 6.2% decline from the prior month. And it's about 30% lower than it was a year ago when, I guess when Trump first got elected. Now he's been president for about a year, although he hasn't been president for a year, but it was a year ago that he got elected. But this is the second lowest level for consumer confidence going back to 1978, second lowest. So according to Trump, we've got the greatest economy ever. Yet the people living in that great economy are almost as pessimistic as they've ever been about the economy. And the only time that consumers were this worried about the economy between now and 1978 was in June of 2022. And that was inflation when it had peaked, around 9%. It was at a 40-year high. And that's the last time consumers were as worried. Yet on that 60 Minutes interview, Donald Trump claimed that inflation is gone. He's killed inflation. There's no more inflation. He thinks it's lower than 2%, even though it's higher. So he's already claiming victory on destroying inflation. When one of the reasons that people are so pessimistic is prices are rising. That's one of the main reasons, and their outlook for prices is that they're going to continue. Gold is forming a nice base here at 4,000. Silver, it's not, at 50, but it ain't much below it. It's around $48 and change. I mean, it's holding pretty steady, very close to $50. It's not tanking back down to 40. So I think, again, this is another opportunity, just like when silver was around 30, and I was saying 30 is the new 20. 50 is really the new 30. I mean, yeah, you could buy it a little bit below, but for who knows how long. So buy yourself some physical gold and silver at Schiff Gold. The gold mining stocks, again, a lot of these stocks are now in bear markets. It is amazing how far off their highs most of these gold and silver mining stocks are, even though gold is almost 4,000. Even though silver is almost 50, these stocks have lost almost all of their gains, since gold was, I think, 3,600, 3,700. Since silver was 40. A lot of these stocks are back down to where they were when silver was 40, even though it's 50. And they're just so scared because, well, it was 54, so it's going down. So what? It was 54 for like a day. I mean, if you took that 1 week out, we'd be at the highs. Right? I mean, where we are right now is, a month ago, this would be record highs for gold and silver a month ago. Yet there's so much bearishness among investors. And there's not nearly enough bearishness among crypto investors. They're completely, and I don't remember the name of the company, but what they do is they loan money based on Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a collateral. And so you send your Bitcoin in, and they'll loan you 50% of the value. And they don't have any kind of credit check. They don't care if you have a job or if you have any other assets. The loan is based entirely on the Bitcoin that you put onto their platform. And apparently the reason that people are doing this is they don't want to sell their Bitcoin, right? They say that the number one rule of Bitcoin is never sell. And the reason that that's the rule is because the people who are selling wrote that rule to make sure other people didn't so they could get out. But so you have all these people and they're saying, hey, people have a lot of money in Bitcoin, but they don't want to sell their precious Bitcoin, but they still want to buy things. They want to buy a new car. Maybe they want to take a vacation. They want to buy a house, but they don't want to sell their Bitcoin. So what do? Well, leverage it, borrow against it, put up your Bitcoin and take out a loan. And this is what's going on. This is going to decimate this market. When the market starts to go down, all this Bitcoin that's being held as collateral is going to be liquidated. So instead of people selling their Bitcoin at $100,000 to buy a car, it's going to get sold out from under them at $50,000, probably less. Because even if it's 50% collateral, the lender isn't going to wait until the Bitcoin loses half its value to blow it out, because then they're going to end up losing money. They won't recover enough. But also, what's going to happen to a lot of these people is they're going to owe tax on the Bitcoin, but they would have already borrowed so much money and spent it that even though they're getting taxed at a lower level, let's say they bought their Bitcoin at $10,000 and it gets blown out at $50,000, they still have $40,000 of gains, but they're not getting $40,000 if they've already borrowed $50,000 out and spent it, right? They're only going to get 10, but they're going to probably owe 20 in taxes. I mean, people are going to be completely upside down. It's so reckless and irresponsible. In fact, I think these platforms, these lending platforms, are probably going to end up getting sued by their customers who get blown out of their Bitcoin because, all right, this great thing that's making us rich, our whole economy now is dependent on these Trump tariffs. And if the Supreme Court takes away this great thing, this gift that Trump has given us, then that's it. I mean, we might as well just, pack up our things. The whole country is going to implode, right? Let's just, like leave, right? Now, obviously, that's not the case. I mean, we clearly can't be dependent. We've only had these tariffs for a few months, and they're not making us rich. The reason that there's a case before the Supreme Court, the plaintiffs in the case are importers who are paying the tariffs, and they don't want to pay the tariffs. And so they filed a lawsuit saying these taxes that we are paying, we American importers are paying these tariffs, and they're unconstitutional because the House did not enact them. And so we're going to court precisely because we're paying them. If the foreigners were paying them, right, if the foreign countries that these American importers were buying stuff from, if they just said, oh, whoa, Trump just put tariffs on, okay, we'll eat those for you. We're going to lower the prices by the amount of the tariffs. If that was happening, they wouldn't be complaining, right? If the foreign producers were paying these tariffs, there would be no lawsuits by American importers. The reason the American importers are suing is because the foreigners are not paying the tariffs.